Hey guys, what is up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So today, as per usual, let's go over Tesla stock, let's go over the market, let's go over what is happening to Tesla stock, what we can expect moving forward into what's going to be another absolutely astronomical week for Tesla with earnings coming up, of course, on Wednesday. A lot of question marks around this earnings. And of course, that's also going to lead us into potentially an equally big issue, if you will. I don't know if maybe not issue, but event, if you will, which of course is the US elections. Why is that a big event for Tesla? Well, because Elon is pretty much all in on Trump, like unironically too. I wish I was kidding, but he's not. I'm not. He's literally all in on Trump. So if Trump loses, good luck Tesla, a stock at least. That's what I'm going to say. But we'll see what happens, right? Either way, a lot of massive events coming up for Tesla stock. The first one being earnings. So let's talk about it. I'll give you my thoughts moving forward. If you enjoyed, don't forget to hit that like button. This is not financial advice. I am not a financial advisor. And of course, my membership section on YouTube is live. That link is down below in the description of the video. For just $2.99 a month, you get access to all my intraday thoughts, post updates on Tesla and sometimes other stocks as well. Or for $5 a month, you get access to all of that plus NVIDIA daily updates as well. But yeah, let's just jump into it. Tesla closing the day pretty much flat, honestly, down, we'll just say 0.1%, closing at $220.7 per share, which is still going to be just barely above that 100 EMO, which, I mean, barely, like ever so slightly above it. It's holding. It is still holding, but barely, not very confidently, I will admit. But yeah, compared to the market, you can see it, is definitely a bit of an underperformance on the day, which, I mean, to be fair, the QQ market's probably up mainly because Netflix absolutely smashed earnings. I am sad. This is the one stock that I just seems to always get away from me. It is what it is. I was so tempted to buy on yesterday. You have no idea, but with earnings, it's like, it's random. You never know for sure. Anyway, whatever. This is a Tesla video. Tesla's in a very weird spot. I will completely admit this is an absolutely just unusual spot to be in for many reasons. And I'm not going to lie, there's a lot of question marks here. Like, I wish I can give you a very confident answer as to what I think is going to happen next, but there's a lot of contradicting things. I'll give you later on, like towards the end of the video, I'll give you what I personally think. If I had to pick a direction, if I had to pick a path and a projection, I'll give you that. I'll give you what I think is going to happen. But again, there's a lot of contradictions, right? So let's talk about, again, both sides as usual. We'll start with the bullish and the bearish side, right? Let's start with the bullish side first. So what's the bullish side, right? The bullish side, if I go over to the weekly candle on the logarithmic chart, this is the logarithmic chart on Tesla, right? We have this white trend line that we've been holding, and we've, found so far decent bounces ever since, we pretty much came back to retest that. And this week, we pretty much did the exact same thing. We actually went down below it, but we closed ever so slightly back above it. And we are printing a doji candle, but we're also printing a bullish, but potentially a bullish Harami candlestick pattern. Now, this is conflicting, right? If I go over here and I type doji candle Wilkowski, right? If you look at a doji candle, usually you see it as a continuation. In this case, a bullish continuation, but I would imagine the opposite is true as well, where it would be essentially a bearish continuation, right? So this is where it's conflicting, because if you look at it just strictly as a doji candle, you can argue this is a potential bearish continuation, but you can also make an argument the fact that it is technically a bullish Harami candle, where you're essentially within the previous week's trading range, and the candle is a lot smaller, which it is. The issue is, I guess, technically we did technically break the last week's range, so we're not technically fully within it. So again, there's just a lot of complexity here. I'll be completely honest. It's a very unusual spot to be in for Tesla. But, if you're looking at it with a bit of a bullish hat on, you can definitely take a look at this as a potential bullish reversal right at pretty much at the trend line that, there's a place to find a bounce and to finally make our way back up, at the very least back into like the 240s, let's say. This roughly would be it, right? This definitely roughly would be that area. So that's probably like the bullish aspect of it, in my opinion, if I were to think of something that is obviously bullish moving forward. Obviously, the other bullish aspect is the fact that we're still holding the 100 EMO, we're holding above it. And of course, we have the BX trender making the second higher low on the daily with the green band appearing as well, which is also a good sign. And we're pretty oversold, right? You can see here, if I bring out the market, not the market bias, sorry, the band's regression, we're still in oversold territory on the daily, right? The stochastic is entering oversold territory. It's not there just yet, but it's, it's getting there. I wouldn't say the stochastic is ready to give us a true indication yet. I mean, it's pretty much still pointing straight down, to be completely honest with you. But, the RSI is still oversold, right? Even this stochastic MTM down here is, starting to enter oversold territory, where both the green and the white line are below, that bottom half, if you will, or whatever area, right below the green line. So there's a lot of signs that are saying Tesla's oversold, but similar to what I've been saying about NVIDIA, if you watch my NVIDIA videos, oversold or overbought doesn't necessarily mean that that's enough of a reason for it to rally or crash, right? Same thing with NVIDIA. I've been saying it's overbought for a while now, but I also kept saying how all that means is the fact that the risk reward up here, might not be ideal for potential too much more bullish, move up. And that's pretty much been the case, right? It's been moving up, but not crazy amount, right? It's just been slowly easing its way up. And same idea can apply to Tesla. Just because Tesla is oversold, which it is, it doesn't mean that it has to rally off of that, right? It doesn't mean that that has to be the bottom, right? It can get more oversold, just like, NVIDIA got more overbought. Tesla can still get more oversold. There's definitely still more room for that. For instance, which is going to be part of my rough base projection moving forward, if we do get more oversold, rather if we do drop down to 207 to 203 roughly, which would be putting us in finally like a pretty extreme oversold territory in my opinion, that's where I believe things can start getting a little bit more interesting. And that's where I think at least a short-ish term bottom can form. But as it stands right now, even though we are oversold, it doesn't mean that has to be the bottom. It doesn't mean that we have to rally strictly off of that. So just keep that in mind. That's really important to understand. But regardless of that, is, in my opinion, kind of like the bullish scenario. And I guess the final one is the fact that despite options flow on Tesla for the past few days being like really, really, really slow, like this, it's pretty rare to see this amount of options on Tesla. It's very, very little. Like the very, very, very little options activity on Tesla for the past few days, especially today, extremely little. So just take that for what it's worth as well. But those are, in my opinion, the bullish aspects, right, of Tesla, right? The fact that, it is potentially forming, a decent base where maybe you can finally, base around here and then ultimately break out of this downward channel that we're in, which will be essentially a break of about 225 early next week, let's say, pretty much up until earnings. That's something that you'd want to watch out for, right? If Tesla can do that, we're looking like we're actually setting up a potential reversal here, which could be, promising, of course. Now, that's the bullish aspect. Let's get into the bearish aspect. And I do think there's a bit more bearishness than bullishness here because, like I said, first and foremost, we're still in a downward channel, right? As I always say, kind of like when we were in this upward channel, like I've continued mentioning it over and over and over again, right? Every single time we've come up to we've come down, again, that new channel isn't drawn to perfection. It's just for, demonstrational purposes. But the point is every time we've come down to this channel, we have found bounces almost every single time. Like down here, we came up, boom, bounce, came down again, bounce, right? So, take that for what it's worth. Every time we come down to this channel, we have had bounces until obviously eventually it cracked, which again, I think same thing will happen to this downward channel, right? At some point, this downward channel will crack. At some point, we will break out, whether it's like this, whether it's like this, whether it's like this, I don't know. But at some point, we will break out. At some point, it'll happen. It's just a matter of how much lower do we go before that happens. But the point I'm trying to make is the fact that while we're within this downward channel, kind of like this upper channel, every time you come up to, in that case, it was support. In this case, it's a resistance. You assume it'll act as, well, upper channel support, downward channel resistance, right? So as of right now, I assume we're pretty much at it or very close to it. It's going to act as a resistance. Plain and simple, I assume it will act as a resistance. Also, I forgot to mention this for the bullish thing. I completely forgot this. Quickly going back to the bullish scenario, we are potentially setting up what could be an ascending triangle pattern here, which has potential for Tesla, right? So this situation right here, higher lows, pretty much equal highs. That is an ascending triangle pattern. So that is actually another bullish catalyst to watch out for. But again, there is also bearish catalysts that kind of contradict it almost, and it just makes it really confusing. So again, let's get into it. So that's one of those things, right? We're approaching a massive resistance in a downward channel. As I assume we continue downwards until proven otherwise. That's number one. Number two is we can also just easily view this as just being essentially roughly a bear flag, right? Like this could just easily be a bear flag that, massive move down, right? And now we're setting up a bear flag just to continue ultimately down even further. And the target of this bear flag, essentially, if you really were to measure it, would be something along the lines of, if you do something like this, and let's say, we break down from somewhere around here, this would take us pretty much back into the 170s, which has been my main target I've been talking about on my bearish scenario, where, this bear flag, assuming earnings, it probably will be the catalyst that will most likely take us down to the 170s, ultimately. Maybe not right away, but ultimately, right? So that's something to watch out for as well. Downward channel, potential bear flag as well. A lot of indecision happening on Tesla here as well. And again, just because, like I said, in the bullish scenario, it is oversold, but it can absolutely get more oversold. For instance, my stochastic, my SMI bands over here, they're entering oversold territory, but on the bearish aspect of it, they're still pointing straight down. They're not really showing any major bottoming signs yet just now on these bands, right? You can see, you know, every time they do get into oversold territory and finally start to curl, we start getting very close to a bottom. The issue is not really showing too many signs of curlage. Curlage, is that a word? Curling just yet. So that's something else to watch out for, right? And again, with earnings being a massive unknown, and especially with politics, really just the what's it called? The election ramping up, of course. You know, we're getting pretty damn close to it, with Elon being just so balls deep into the election right now. For at least short term, that can give a lot of uncertainty. That can give a lot of, you know, potential pressure onto the stock until that pressure is essentially unwinded, based on the fact that, well, number one, the election will just be finished, and ideally, obviously, at least for the stock and for Elon, Trump wins, right? That's just kind of how this goes. So yeah, there's a lot of question marks, right? There's a lot of bullish signs. There are bullish signs showing up, but there's also enough bearish signs that are pretty powerful as well that are just not convincing me just yet. So again, to put it all together and to sum it all up, if you were to sum everything up, and then I'll give you my projection of what I think will happen, the easiest way to ignore as much noise and to really just focus on the most important aspects, at least is what I'm trying to do, of where Tesla will go next based on levels. So that's all that matters at the end of the day, levels. 225, 215. That's it. Those are the most important levels. Break above 225, close and hold above 225. That means that we broke above this pretty important resistance point, and we most likely broke out of this downward trend. And I think, unless obviously this happens pre-earnings, that should be a damn good sign. That should be a good sign. Worst case, we come back, retest, and then make our way back up, right? Like I said, remember to like the top of this channel, or wedge, if you will, that's potentially forming. That could be a good sign. However, if we lose about 215, if we close below 215 and whatnot, then obviously we get pretty bearish. I think that's where my kind of base projection starts to play out. We lose this trend line, and I think we'll flush pretty quickly all the way down to about the very low 200s, 207, 203, at which point I do think we'll find a base, at least for the short term, because at that point we'll just get way too oversold. And then from there, I think we'll make our way back up to retest this trend line, which will be somewhere around the 220s-ish, depending on how fast it happens, I guess. And then I think we'll reject from there and finally make our way down to the main target, all the way down at 170-ish. Or 180, somewhere around there. I don't know exactly where. Again, just 170s, 180s, somewhere around there. That's kind of this is my base projection. This is if I was forced to pick something I think that would happen, obviously take it with a grain of salt. This probably would be it. But again, let the levels decide, right? We're showing a lot of doji candles. I don't remember the last time we've had this much indecision and this many doji candles pretty much in a row. You can even argue the first one is kind of a doji candle, but especially the ones after that, the last 5 days and arguably 6, are essentially doji candles showing indecision, showing a lot of uncertainty with the stock. The volume is pretty much abysmal now for the past 3 days. So we'll see how this plays out. Again, a lot of unfortunate things coming out, but again, to really just eliminate noise, 225, 215, very important levels. Watch for those to hold or break. And yeah, I think for those will probably give us a pretty damn indication, a good indication rather. And I guess the final thing is if we rally into earnings, let's say Monday or Tuesday, and we do rally to 225, that's where I'll get a little bit concerning, unless, of course, we obviously break it and hold it. Or if we sell off back to 215, that's where I will get also maybe a little bit more bullish. Kind of like what happened to Netflix. Netflix pretty much just sold off into earnings, and the day of earnings sold off very aggressively just to pretty much absolutely skyrocket 11%. Same idea with Tesla. I think if we sell off into earnings down to 215, I actually think that slightly increases the chances of a potential push up post earnings, and vice versa. But yeah, anyway, those are the levels. You know what to look out for. You know what I'm looking for, and let's just see how it plays out, man. I mean, again, we're in for a pretty wild ride here. So yeah, good luck to everyone playing. Let's see what happens, and I'll see you on Monday. Peace.